Okay, elephant in the room. How come in neither one of the two films did we see a guild navigator? Guild navigators are such a huge part of Dune, and they are just as iconic to the saga as the Bene Gesserit. One could argue that Dune would be impossible to depict without showing the guild navigators. And yet, here we are. Two whole Dune films, all dedicated to just the first book and all without navigators. Surprisingly, to me, the films did work without them. They were not perfect by any means, but they were still very impressive and definitely the best Dune adaptations we're ever gonna get. So, what do I think about the navigators being excluded? Well, I'm kind of on the 50-50 verge. Firstly, why do I think it was a mistake not to include them? Well, because generally, the navigators are the only means of actual space travel in the Dune universe. In real life, I don't think people even realize how insanely impossible far-off space travel would be, simply because the distances in space are so mind-bogglingly huge. The closest star to us, after the Sun, is 4 light years away, and 1 light year is the distance that a beam of light travels for 1 year, and the speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second. So to better visualize this, if you shrink our sun to the size of a pea, then this closest star would have to be 220 kilometers away from the pea. The distance is absolutely insane. And so for us to space travel at this point, it will be impossible without some magical sci-fi method, which is what the navigators in Dune provide. They make objects travel through the gigantic distances by quote-unquote folding space, which is, at least what I assume, the theory of wormholes that I think Einstein developed. Instead of literally traveling the distance, you just bring together in one point the location of departure and the location of the destination, literally cutting out the space between them. And so, if you do not mention how people do space travel in Dune, then practically you don't even know how the fuck there's a whole freaking empire spanning the entire universe. That was also one of the main things that Paul Atreides used to defeat the Emperor. The navigators can only do space travel by using the spice. And Paul seized control of spice production, which means that he literally has the power to cut off space travel, which in turn means that the world as they know it, the Empire, will literally cease to exist because each and every planet will be cut off and isolated forever. So to me, the navigators and the space travel element are a crucial part of the first book, and they absolutely should have been included in the two films. However, as disappointed as I was by this, the movies did work after all. Because I guess people just don't ask themselves as many questions as I do, and I do get the point that if they tried to stuff the navigators in, it might have become a little too much for the viewer in terms of new information that they have to assimilate. After all, look at what happened with the Lynch film in '84. The navigators were just some weird giant space vagina faces, and the space folding scene looked kind of ridiculous. And let me make it clear, I liked those in the Lynch film, maybe precisely because of the fact that they were so weird. But if you want to make a Dune film that doesn't look ridiculous for no reason, I would agree that you would want to exclude those. My hopes are, currently, that they will reserve the Guild Navigators for the third movie, which will be based on the second book, Dune Messiah. If they appear in the next film as an exciting new element, if we, for example, see the first look of a navigator in the trailer for Messiah, then I could absolutely forgive the omission from the first two films. So, I guess let's wait, hope, and see.